Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we have another request. This is Tiamat's Rebuke Dragon Shield. Tiamat's Rebuke is a very interesting shield that seems to revolve very highly around elemental damage. And the entire point of it seems to be, hey, I can do lots and lots of elemental damage of all different types, but not a lot of every single one. And they're all on Windstruck, which kind of means that you'd want to wear this when you're going into battle. You wouldn't necessarily want to put this on someone who is not going to be in the thick of it getting beat up. We have a lot of different effects going on here, and we're going to go over each one as we come along. So first off, we have a defense of 204 on this shield with a chance to block of 48% on Paladins. It is only 43% on Amazon, Assassin, and Barbarian, and only 38% on Druid, Necromancer, and Sorceress. This particular shield does have a smite damage of 15 to 24 and a strength requirement of 91 with only a level requirement of 38. At 38, when this shield is equipable, the damage that it outputs is actually pretty considerable, and I think that you will find that it's actually pretty sweet. Now, we're going to go over each one of these skills, though, and we're going to talk about what kind of viability the skills would have in reference to the level 38 level. So right off the bat here, at the top, we have a 3% chance to cast level 6 Hydra, which isn't a relatively high percent chance. A level 6 Hydra is a 43 to 55 damage per bolt Hydra. It does have, I think, 3 heads, and each head fires a bolt. So you're talking about basically around 50 damage times 3, so about 150 damage per Hydra. If you can get multiple of these to spawn, of course, which at 3%, it's not going to be the greatest percent chance there. We also have a 5% chance to cast level 7 Nova when struck, and of course Nova is a AoE damage ability, so it's 37 to 68 damage on this. And I do think that the Nova is going to be mildly helpful because it is a nice AoE damage. At around level 38, it actually will do a pretty decent amount of damage on a regular basis if it procs all the time. Like for instance, if you're in the middle of a group of monsters, you're going to get a nice, pop, 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 pop. Which can be effective. A little bit more effective than the Hydras, which are only going to target one monster at a time, versus the Nova, which could potentially hit 20, 30 monsters at a time for 50 damage, and you multiply that out, it does a little bit more than you think. And if you're a single target damage character, it actually kind of works out to your advantage because it will slowly sort of drain the monster's health around you, so that when you do get to them, it's a little bit easier to kill. I like to call it, like area clearing effect, or like AoE damage added on to single target. It's a little bit difficult to quantify it. We also have a 5% chance to cast level 9 Frost Nova, which is another AoE damage ability, and a very nice one that applies an AoE chill effect as well. And at level 9, we're looking at 19 to 25 damage. Not as much damage, however, it does have a chill duration of 15 seconds, and it's going to chill everything within range. So you're going to get a nice chilling effect, which is a very nice defensive mechanic. Frost Nova is actually one of the things I usually love to have on a character as a chance to struck, because when you get into trouble, Frost Nova can definitely save your life. The AoE chill effect will cause all the monsters to slow down and give you a chance to run away. So, right now, right off the bat, we have Hydras shooting fire. We've got Novas shooting out with lightning. We've got Frost Novas shooting out with cold. And then we also have damage added to our attacks. So we have a 35 to 95 fire damage added to our attacks. We have a very nice 1 to 120 lightning damage added to our attack, and 27 to 53 cold damage added to our attack. I mean, if we just put this shield on, you'll notice that even just punching, we go from 18 to 80 to 81 to 348 damage at level 38, which is probably enough to just punch things to death in Act 1 Nightmare difficulty. We also have a 200% enhanced defense on this, which does vary from 140 to 200%. And we have all resistances, which varies from 25 to 35. Obviously, 35 would be the ideal there. This, of course, can also come in the ethereal form, and there's no repairs mechanic on this, so that means it will eventually just break. Now, the Hydra, the Nova, and the Frost Nova could actually theoretically be synergized. So if you were a like some sort of battle sorceress who wanted to just like have these things procking all the time. It could be interesting, but I just don't really see the Frost Nova ever doing enough damage to actually be useful. The Nova is honestly needs to be max level to do good damage, and the Hydras are not really ever going to do good damage either. So it's kind of just like they're too low of a level, and they're also too low of a chance to proc, which is another big issue with this shield. When you put it on, what you'll notice is that even if you go out and you get beat up, it's not really going to proc the effects very often. Unfortunately, it's just not really high enough for that particular ability. And let me just put on something like, just something to help keep me alive, shall we? Just so that I can stand there and take a beating. And of course, I've got Andoriel's Visage on to really make the Novas pop out. As you can see here, there's one Frost Nova, there's a Nova, there's a Hydra, there's a Frost Nova. I mean, it does proc enough that it's that it is going to be useful to you, especially as a melee character. But it's not going to proc enough, in my opinion, to be like a additional damage source. I do feel like that level 9 Frost Nova is going to be very useful to you as a melee character, just simply because it's going to be a huge defensive mechanic. Trust me when I say that having an AoE chill effect constantly going off is going to be very useful to you as a defensive mechanic to help keep you alive. The Hydras and the Nova, I'm not really quite so sure about, but the added elemental damage on a Zeal Paladin or something of that nature could be absolutely amazing. I have utilized a Tiamat's Rebuke on a couple odd builds, like for instance, I wanted to try a Elementress Sorceress, and the goal of that was just simply to have maximum Fire Mastery, maximum Lightning Mastery, and maximum Cold Mastery, and basically just stack up as much fire, lightning, and cold damage as I possibly could. And the goal of this was essentially to have, just multiplicative sources, because of course Fire Mastery and Lightning Mastery multiply my fire and lightning damage, and the Cold Mastery of course reduces the resistances of everything nearby, helping my cold damage to do more. And putting this shield on a sorceress was a rather interesting experiment, because not only could she multiply the elemental damage on the shield, she could also gain effect from the Hydra, the Nova, and the Frost Nova. And of course, she utilized a weapon in the other hand. I think I remember putting a Gimmer Shred on her from the high elemental damage for Gimmer Shred, and I ran around throwing the axe at people with max charms and all sorts of other elemental gear that I could pull out, like any piece of gear that gave me any kind of elemental damage. It was interesting. I didn't necessarily think it was the best build in the world, but it certainly was able to handle hell if players won just fine. And I do think Tiamat's Rebuke is a very fun shield for melee characters around level 38. I don't think it's probably going to be very good to upgrade, but we're still going to upgrade it anyway, because that's what we do. We always upgrade the items. And I'm going to grab a Laminico, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to upgrade these to the higher tier. So we're going to need 2 limbs, we're going to need 2 coes, and we're going to need 2 perfect diamonds. So Tiamat's Rebuke, Dragon Shield. And let me move myself out of the way so we can take a look at the stats. So we've got 204 defense, 48% chance to block, 15 to 24 smite damage at 91 strength required, and level 38. And of course, this is going to go to a Monarch Shield. It's going to go to 405 defense, 52% chance to block, 12 to 34 smite damage, 156 strength, and level 61. The ethereal version is going to get a little bit higher defense. That's going to go from 306 defense, 48% chance to block, 15 to 24 smite damage, 81 strength at level 38, to 624 defense, 52% chance to block, 12 to 34 smite damage, 146 for strength requirement, and level 61. Now, of course, you would have to put a Zod rune in this shield to make it useful. So, unless you had a Zod rune just laying around that you wanted to waste in the Tiamat's Rebuke, you're probably not going to use the ethereal version. Now, the non-ethereal version can be upgraded a little bit further with an rune to add some more resistances. You could potentially put something maybe like a Shale rune in it for increased block rate, or an Eld rune for faster blocking. There's a couple different choices. You could also just simply put a 15% IAS jewel in there to make yourself attack faster. I don't necessarily think that it is a relatively good shield for level 61, but I do feel like, just in general, it's a relatively good shield for level 38, which is the level that you find it at. And speaking of finding it, let's go take a look at the Silos pen, and let's see what kind of areas we could go to try and locate this particular shield, right? So here we are over on Silos pen, and we're going to pull up the Tiamat's Rebuke. There's so many items that start with T. Alright, so we're going to look in Nightmare difficulty. Actually, no, let's look at all difficulties right now. Let's look at bosses. Let's just see who has the highest probability, shall we? So, non-quest kill, Mephisto in Nightmare difficulty. Endurance of Hate level 3, 1 in 1,533. Diablo and Bale in Nightmare both have a pretty good chance as well. And let's take a look at super uniques. The Cow King in Hell has a really good chance at 1 in 5,474. 1,500. Cow, do you see this crap? 1 in 5,447, which is not a bad chance, actually. But in Hell difficulty, unfortunately, that's a monster that's probably outside of your reach if you're trying to grab this shield. So let's take a look specifically at normal. There's nothing. Nightmare difficulty. Probability. So, Radamant, the Cow King in Nightmare. Eldritch the Rectifier in Nightmare. It's a little high level, but let's see if there's anyone else that's a little bit in a lower level zone. Somebody who might be easy to farm for someone who's just getting into Nightmare difficulty, where this shield would be useful. The Summoner in Arcane Sanctuary is not easy to farm, and that's actually a pretty terrible chance. Not really a lot of good options here. There really is not a lot of good options. I mean, Beetle Burst in Nightmare is relatively easy to find and get to, and the Dark Elder in Lost City. So that might be your ideal kills there. Beetle Burst and Dark Elder, because honestly, they're the two easiest, lowest level monsters that you could potentially farm for this item. You know, if you were just getting into Nightmare difficulty and you were trying to get your hands on a Tiamat's Rebuke, you're probably not going to be in, you know, Act 5 and able to kill Eldritch and Shank, which do have pretty good chances. But, you know, if you're trying to get your hands on this around level 38, which is the perfect level for it, you know, level 38 is about Act 2 Nightmare difficulty. That sounds about right. So so Act 2 Nightmare is Beetle Burst and Dark Elder. Dark Elder is always in Lost City, and Beetle Burst is always in Far Oasis. Dark Elder is usually near the Ancient Tunnels entrance, and Beetle Burst is just kind of randomly wherever he feels like being. But he's always in Far Oasis, so I mean, you could potentially farm those two over and over again. As far as the best place to find it, though, it definitely does look like the Cow King in Hell difficulty as your highest probability chance there. Of course, you can also farm the bosses, as we were looking at earlier, and again, the best probability for the bosses does seem to be Hell and Dariel. So very interesting. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when it's about a very rebuking shield that doesn't like you. It's going to rebuke you in the name of Jesus. That's right. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and I already said that, didn't I? And keep watching.